Native Americans on the Great Plains didn't just survive, they mocked the odds. Blizzards, droughts, and a land stingy with mercy, they built teepees and hunted buffalo anyway. Irony is, their survival secrets were so good, history nearly forgot them. Ready to uncover what's buried? The Great Plains today hum with deceptive calm, winds hiss through towering grasses, prairie dogs bark near burrows, and bison munch lazily on lush fields. It's a postcard scene, almost serene, until you realize it's hiding a brutal truth. Centuries ago, these same plains vibrated with different sounds, Native American voices, songs, and the pulse of lives carved from a landscape that didn't play nice. Survival here wasn't a gift, it was a fight won daily. Back then, the Great Plains were no less harsh, with scorching summers and winters that could freeze ambition itself. Native Americans didn't just live here, they thrived, turning a merciless expanse into a cultural stronghold. Their presence stretches back thousands of years, etched into the land long before anyone thought to write it down. Artifacts, pottery, jewelry, tools dug up by archaeologists whisper their story. Each shard and bead screams resilience, proof that these first Americans didn't just endure, they outsmarted the odds. Enter Decali Aqua, known as Joanne Shenandoah, a Wolf Clan member of the Iroquois Confederacy. Her voice carries the weight of ancestors who knew the plains' moods better than any meteorologist. She'd tell you the grasslands weren't just a backdrop, they were a battleground where every day demanded cunning. The Native Americans of the Great Plains didn't romanticize the land. They respected its cruelty and built lives anyway, mocking its worst tantrums with their ingenuity. These early inhabitants left more than footprints. Their artifacts, scattered across the plains, reveal a culture that laughed in the face of hardship. Pottery wasn't just for cooking, it was a canvas for defiance. Jewelry wasn't mere decoration, it was identity, worn proudly against a world that offered little mercy. Tools weren't just practical, they were proof of a people who turned scarcity into strength. The Great Plains shaped them, but they shaped it right back, leaving a legacy that history tried, and failed, to bury. Thousands of years ago, the Northern Hemisphere locked itself in an ice age grip, with glaciers swallowing landscapes and dropping ocean levels to expose a land bridge between Northeast Asia and North America. Scientists still cling to this Bering Land Bridge as the main highway for early humans, though genetic whispers from Siberian routes confirm the trek, while coastal routes sneak in as alternative paths for those who preferred sea views over frozen hikes. These migrants, chasing bison and caribou, didn't just wander, they gambled on a new world, turning survival into a multi-generational relay race across continents. Artifacts and DNA paint a picture of isolation on Beringia before the full plunge southward, a prelude to populating an empty canvas with human ingenuity. Once across, these first arrivals fanned out like a viral trend gone wild, settling from the Pacific Northwest's misty forests to the Northeast's tangled woodlands, and the Southwest's parched deserts. But some eyed the central prairies, that vast, no man's land, between the Mississippi River and Rocky Mountains, stretching from Canada's chill to Mexico's heat. Here, on the Great Plains, they planted roots in sweeping valleys, rolling hills, and sparse streams, where trees were rare luxuries and shelter meant staring down the sun's glare or winter's bite. It was nature's version of a minimalist challenge. Endure scorching summers that could fry ambition and winters cold enough to make modern heating bills look like a joke, all while building communities that laughed off the isolation. These plains pioneers formed nations like the Pawnee, Blackfoot, Comanche, and Lakota, each adapting to a land that offered endless grass but demanded constant vigilance. Sedentary groups farmed corn in river valleys, while nomads tracked bison herds, blending hunting with gathering in a rhythm dictated by the seasons. Archaeological digs reveal fulsome points and tools from around 10,000 years ago, markers of a culture that turned scarcity into strategy, long before anyone thought to romanticize the Wild West. The irony? This settlement wasn't about conquest. It was quiet persistence against a continent that seemed designed to test limits, setting the stage for cultures richer than the gold rushes that later ignored them. The Great Plains Native Americans built their world around the buffalo, a beast that dictated every move in a dance of survival that would make today's supply chain managers envious. Cultures among tribes like the Lakota, Comanche, Blackfoot, and Pawnee varied in nuances, yet they all hinged on those massive herds for food, shelter, and tools. Nomadic lifestyles meant constant relocation, following the buffalo's whims across vast grasslands that offered no forgiveness for poor planning. Villages stayed small, easing the burden of packing up and trekking onward. a routine that turned migration into an art form long before road trips became a hashtag. This dependence wasn't just practical, it wove into their social fabric, where wasting any part of the animal was as unthinkable as throwing away a perfectly good smartphone today. The irony bites hard. A culture so attuned to sustainability faced near extinction when outsiders treated the buffalo like an endless resource. In this setup, men hunted in groups, taking only what sustained the group, while women processed the kills with efficiency that shames modern assembly lines. The buffalo's migration patterns shaped seasonal calendars, blending hunting with gathering wild plants, creating a balanced diet that kept communities healthy amid the plains' unpredictable moods. Teepees stood as the ultimate mobile homes, engineered for a life on the move where permanence was a luxury few could afford. Crafted from buffalo hides stretched over wooden poles, these structures dismantled in hours, packed onto travois pulled by dogs or later horses, and reassembled with the ease of popping up a modern tent on a camping app. Families tied long branches together at the top, fanning them out into a cone, then draped durable hides over the frame, securing them with stakes against winds that could howl like a bad neighbor's karaoke. Doors always faced east, greeting the rising sun as if to say, another day, another grind, in a land where dawn brought both opportunity and ordeal. Inside, a central fire pit ringed by stones provided warmth and cooking space, with a smoke hole at the apex venting fumes like a primitive chimney system. Hides kept interiors cozy in winter's grip and surprisingly cool under summer's blaze, a natural insulation that outperformed early colonial cabins. Each teepee housed one family, sleeping on furry buffalo robes, storing baskets, extra clothes, and dried foods in neat corners. Exteriors boasted unique paintings, personal billboards showcasing family personalities or achievements, turning camps into galleries of lived stories. The dark humor here? These efficient dwellings outlasted many settler forts, yet history often reduces them to quaint props in Western films. For tribes like the Lakota, teepees symbolized adaptability, a far cry from the rigid structures Europeans imposed later, highlighting how mobility equaled freedom until it didn't. Hunting on the plains turned into communal spectacles, where men ventured out in large groups armed with bows and arrows, targeting buffalo alongside antelope, deer, elk, and moose. They set traps for smaller game like prairie dogs and rabbits, ensuring variety in a diet that could otherwise monetize faster than a streaming binge. Efficiency ruled, kills were precise, wasting nothing in a landscape where scarcity lurked like a plot twist. Women and elders back at camp handled preparation, roasting fresh meat on sticks over open fires or boiling it into stews in pits lined with hides. Some cuts became jerky, smoked and dried for longevity, a preservation method that kept famine at bay during harsh winters when snow blanketed the grass like a cruel blanket. While meat dominated plates, women foraged herbs, berries, and wild plants, adding nutrients that prevented the nutritional pitfalls settlers later faced with their one-note diets. Tribes like the Pawnee blended hunting with farming corn in river valleys, a hybrid approach that mocked pure nomadism's risks. The irony stings. This sustainable system fed thousands for centuries, yet when horses arrived post-contact, it amplified hunts to levels that foreshadowed the herd's doom. Food wasn't just sustenance, rituals around meals reinforced bonds, with stories shared over flames, turning dinner into therapy sessions before therapy was invented. In Comanche society, hunts doubled as training grounds for warriors, blending provision with prowess in a cycle that kept communities resilient. Processing buffalo hides demanded skill and patience, transforming raw materials into clothing and tools that endured the plains' extremes. Women skinned the animals, stretching hides on the ground with stakes, scraping off flesh and hair before washing them in streams. The result? Tough leather for leggings, dresses, and moccasins, dyed or painted for flair. Horns shaped into spoons, bowls, or children's toys, while bones forged weapons and implements stronger than early metal alternatives. Nothing escaped utility, even sinew-threaded needles, a zero-waste ethos that would impress today's eco-warriors. Clothing reflected this ingenuity. Men donned animal skin leggings, loincloths, and belts, some earning eagle feather war bonnets for deeds, where more feathers equaled higher status, like badges in a video game. Women crafted deerskin dresses, adorned with metal or bead jewelry, while children mirrored adult styles, all shod in buckskin moccasins sewn meticulously. The Blackfoot excelled in quill work on hides, adding artistry to function. Irony lurks in how these garments, symbols of self-sufficiency, became commodified in museums, stripped of the sweat that made them. For the Lakota, clothing carried spiritual weight, patterns invoking protection in a world where every thread told a tale. Family unity anchored Plains life, a glue stronger than the hides binding teepees, where children learned tribal ways from infancy without the rod-sparing philosophy that modern parenting books echo. Punishment? A bucket of water over the head sufficed. A splash of humility far kinder than alternatives. Boys rode horses almost before walking, grandfathers teaching bow skills for future buffalo hunts, joining fathers when ready, cementing men as providers. Girls assisted mothers and grandmothers in cooking, sewing, and home care, praised for talents like culinary prowess that fed the village soul. Women managed teepee logistics, chopping meat, gathering plants, crafting goods, their artistry clothing entire communities. In Pawnee clans, matrilineal lines influenced inheritance, a subtle power shift in a male hunter narrative. The Comanche's fluid gender roles allowed women warriors occasionally, subverting expectations like a plot hole in history's script. Elders bridged generations, their wisdom settling disputes and passing lore, ensuring culture's continuity amid the plains' ceaseless change. This structure, rigid yet flexible, mirrored the land itself, thriving until external forces cracked its foundations. Leadership fell to the eldest, often chiefs whose longevity earned wisdom badges, resolving conflicts with words respected like law in a courtroom drama. Without the gavels, they mentored youth in the Native American way, a curriculum of survival, ethics, and lore that schools today could envy for its practicality. In Lakota circles, medicine men held spiritual sway, their visions guiding decisions in a blend of governance and mysticism. Blackfoot societies featured warrior societies enforcing order, a proto-police force with cultural clout. The irony? These decentralized systems outmaneuvered hierarchical invaders initially, only to falter under numbers and tech. Art flourished as expression. Painters crushed berries for pigments, adorning hides with designs that narrated hunts or dreams, while carvers shaped pipes from wood or stone for ceremonies. Spirituality infused everything, believing spirits inhabited sun, moon, stars, animals, people, even rocks. A pantheistic view that made every step sacred. This worldview fostered respect for nature, contrasting sharply with the exploitation that followed. For the Pawnee, celestial observations tied to agriculture, blending art with astronomy in ways that predated telescopes. Clothing doubled as canvas and creed, women's deerskin dresses and men's war bonnets carrying symbols of honor, like feathers for bravery that accumulated like LinkedIn endorsements. Beadwork and quills added layers, each piece a biography worn proudly. Spirituality wove through, with rituals honoring spirits in daily acts, from hunts to harvests, ensuring harmony in a chaotic expanse. The rich culture peeked through these elements, a heritage of ingenuity against odds that history books often gloss over. Tribes preserved this through oral traditions, a living archive that outlasted written records' biases. Modern parallels emerge. Their communal ethos mirrors co-working spaces, but with real stakes. The Plains people's legacy endures in powwows today, where dances and songs echo ancestors, defying erasure. Yet the dark twist remains. A culture so vibrant, built on balance, crumbled under greed's weight, leaving lessons unheeded. The Plains' artistic output extended beyond hides, with carvings and paintings serving ritual purposes, like pipes for peace talks that sealed alliances amid rivalries. Leadership intertwined with this, chiefs donning adorned shirts as badges of authority, their decisions steeped in spiritual consultation. Beliefs emphasized interconnectedness, spirits guiding hunts or weather, a holistic approach that modern ecology echoes faintly. Gender roles, while defined, allowed fluidity. Some women led in spiritual realms, challenging the hunter-gatherer stereotype. Food preparation rituals reinforced this, stews simmering with stories, binding families tighter than sinew. Nomadism's rhythm pulsed through, teepees rising and falling like breaths, each camp a fresh chapter. Irony abounds. A people who mastered mobility faced forced sedentism on reservations, their culture adapting yet scarred. Today's descendants revive these practices, apps teaching languages, a digital teepee preserving what bullets couldn't erase. The buffalo's ghost looms, a reminder of dependence turned vulnerability. In Comanche raids, art captured triumphs, hides painted with battle scenes like ancient comics. Spirituality fueled resilience. Visions quested for guidance in a land of extremes. Clothing evolved with trade, beads from Europeans adding sparkle to traditions, a fusion that predated globalization's buzz. Elders' tales around fires educated, leadership emerging from consensus rather than crowns. The Pawnee's star charts influenced planting, blending science with spirit in ways NASA might admire. Hunts's communal nature built trust, food shared equitably, mocking later inequalities. Teepee's design brilliance, aerodynamic against storms, shames flimsy modern builds. Family teachings instilled values, children absorbing roles organically, a system efficient yet humane. The culture's richness lay in this tapestry, woven from necessity and creativity, enduring despite attempts to unravel it. Dark humor surfaces in how settlers aped these ways, failing spectacularly. Blackfoot spirituality revered the sun, dances honoring cycles that sustained life. Artifacts like decorated robes told histories, leadership validated by deeds, not birthright. Women's crafts, from moccasins to baskets, underpinned economy, their roles pivotal yet understated in narratives. Buffalo Hunt's precision, using drives over cliffs, showcased strategy akin to military ops. Preservation techniques, drying meats with smoke, ensured survival through lean times, a foresight lost on overhunters. The plains' cultural depth, from beliefs to daily grind, formed a resilient whole, irony in its fragility to change. This heritage, peeked through artifacts, demands remembrance, a punchline to history's joke. European settlers stormed the Great Plains like gatecrashers, upending a world where Native Americans had hunted buffalo and thrived off the land for thousands of years. Railroads carved the grasslands, caging migration paths and fueling hunts that slashed bison numbers from millions to a few hundred by the 1890s. Tribes like the Lakota and Comanche, once sovereign over their nomadic domain, saw their lifeblood drained as hides fed eastern prophets. The twist stings. A creature anchoring plains' existence turned into a commodity for outsiders who viewed the land as a blank slate, blind to the cultures it nourished. This wasn't just overhunting. It was a calculated strike, gutting tribal economies and spirits before soldiers sealed the deal. The aftermath roared through like a wildfire, herds vanished and violence surged, with massacres at Sand Creek and Wounded Knee scarring Lakota memory. Disease and conflict culled populations, some tribes faded entirely, and survivors were corralled onto reservations, scraps of land offered as meager compensation. These plots, often infertile and distant from sacred grounds, broke nomadic rhythms, chaining free-roaming peoples to government handouts that mocked their former independence. Blackfoot and Pawnee societies splintered under assimilation's boot, with languages and rituals outlawed in a so-called civilizing mission. The grim humor lies here. Settlers spun tales of the vanishing Indian while actively erasing them, peddling fiction in pulp novels as cultures fought to survive. Yet, in these confined spaces, resilience flickered, preserving identity against odds stacked high. Understanding this history isn't academic fluff. It's a mirror reflecting America's tangled roots, where liberty for some crushed others. The Plains story lays bare the cost of expansion, with bison slaughters and forced migrations exposing progress's shadow. It resonates in today's fights over land rights and reparations, showing how past choices ripple forward. Comanche oral histories still recount defensive raids, their horse culture hobbled by treaties and barbed wire. This knowledge connects then to now, spotlighting endurance amid disruption, a tale begging to be told to counter history's selective memory. The sharp edge? A nation built on freedom often silenced those who lived it most fiercely. Today, many Plains Native Americans weave into urban fabrics, from Denver's bustle to Dallas's sprawl, their lives blending with neighbors' daily grinds. Reservations house some, but others chase careers in tech, law, or art, defying old stereotypes of isolation. Lakota professionals in Rapid City juggle spreadsheets and beadwork, while Comanche youth in Oklahoma code apps laced with tribal symbols. This isn't loss, it's evolution, adapting to upheaval while holding fast to roots. The dark chuckle comes in their ubiquity. Once confined, they're now everywhere, proving survival bends but doesn't break. Modern existence fuses tradition with progress, a quiet middle finger to extinction myths. Preservation thrives in powwows, where drums echo across summer fields, and Blackfoot elders teach languages through apps. Pawnee projects restore bison herds, while Comanche digitize horse lore for the internet age. Lakota activists battle pipelines, guarding sacred lands against new threats. Spirituality lives in sun dances and sweat lodges, passed down like treasures despite urban sprawl. This isn't sentimentality, it's resistance, honoring ancestors by adapting their ways. Efforts to erase them sparked a revival, with groups like the Intertribal Buffalo Council rebuilding herds, turning loss into legacy. In 2025, these keepers of truth ensure the first Americans' voices ring out. louder than ever. The Great Plains went from buffalo haven to settler turf, herds wiped out as cultures held firm. Native Americans turned confinement into revival, proving resilience outlasts empires. History's lesson bites. Ignore it, and it festers. Subscribe to Histories and Native Tales for more raw truths. Comment your take, and grab popcorn for the next one.